Can you believe it?
All right. In 10, 9. No. All right.
Okay.
All right. Ready? In 3, 2.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to the Liars Club. I'm Felicia Michaels.
I'm Pallavi Gunalan.
And today we have a very, very special show. I'm going to gush all over you, and so I would love to see you bathe in it. So our guest today is a gentleman that I've known since I was a young lady. Even before that, my stepmother had such a crush on you. She was from Berlin.
Okay.
Yeah,
Wow.
both my stepmother and my mother from Berlin, Germany. And I remember before you even did comedy, she was like, "Oh, Yakov Smirnoff, Yakov Smirnoff."
Wow.
So when I became a regular here at the Comedy Store, and you were here at the Comedy Store,
Yeah.
Yakov, I felt like I was watching God. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, Yakov
set
Smirnoff.
that up pretty high.
Yay.
Thank you. Wow.
Yay.
Thank you.
And the conversation we had before we started to stream live is I got to tell Yakov what a fleshlight was. It was pretty
and I
cool.
knew what the flashlight was, except it has a different meaning now.
Yeah, yes, it does.
Yes. I would
Flashlight.
enjoy this flashlight probably more than the other one.
Yeah,
that,
maybe.
that one hurt. Yeah.
Yeah. And you'd get zapped all the time. Not
That's
a good
right.
thing. So what we do here at the Liars Club is we have some of our comedy pals come on. I believe someone will be joining us in 15 minutes. We'll wait till he gets here before we say who it is, just in case he doesn't get here. But it's been terrible traffic on Sunset. But what we do here at the Liars Club is we have our pals come on. We ask them to tell two stories. One is the truth and one is a lie. And then we'll all ask questions to see which one is the lie. It's a pretty simple premise. And people are playing along live on YouTube. And if you
cool.
guys are watching on YouTube, just put your comments in the comment section. And Austin here, our on-air producer, will go through them and he'll relay them. If you have questions, please do ask them. And so let's get started. Don't tell us which story is which, obviously, and
Obviously.
however you would like to go about it, Yakov.
Okay. So the first story, I'll take you kind of back to the Soviet Union where I grew up. And I was in college, and there was a young lady who came from China, and it was very unusual in the Soviet Union to have Chinese students, and so there was a lot of interest on my part in meeting her and exploring her flashlight, and
What have we done?
Good things, good
you
things.
created a monster, right? And so, and she seemed to be curious. She was learning Russian there, and so she didn't mind practicing some of the language. So we started. I asked her out, and she didn't speak a lot of Russian, but we went out on a date, and this will sound strange, but we went to the park and we had a little picnic, and I was, she was showing me how to use chopstick. And I never seen what does chopstick mean? Something bad too?
No,
not yet.
Chopsticks,
It's
wink,
just
wink.
Yeah. I don't know. Now his flashlight is not safe anymore. Where chopsticks go? So we were. She was teaching me how to use chopsticks. We laughed a lot, but we didn't communicate very well. And then it was getting dark, and there was some synergy and connection, and so I wanted to kiss her, and I reached out, and she kind of came towards me, and we kissed, and all of a sudden, this is bizarre because you mentioned that word flashlight, a police officer, because you're not allowed to kiss in public places in the Soviet Union. So he was shining the flashlight on us.
Okay.
And what the heck?
Hot, very hot.
What happened, right? What's going on here? And she got it got reported, and she got in trouble with the school, and then reported, and then her parents called her back to China because of this thing. It was crazy.
Jeez.
But that's the Soviet regime, and that's and I never. I mean, we could not communicate at those days. There was no way to do that. So
You never knew what happened to her at all.
I don't know. Yeah,
Yeah. And what was her name?
Lee.
Very suspicious. Very generic. No.
Yeah, that was her name.
Yeah. Wow.
And she taught me
Damn.
how to say "I love you" in Chinese.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and I still remember that this was like, I don't know, 75 or 74.
And how do you say it?
It's it's, you have to remember, wa I ni.
What I need?
Yeah,
Oh, wow.
it means I love you.
I've heard
Yeah.
of the kiss of death, but I've never heard of the kiss of deportation.
I know. I know.
Well, this
Yeah.
was,
That's how
this
Yeah.
was, yeah, that's
Strong as
socialism.
sexuality is,
Yeah.
he'll send you right back to China.
Yeah. Well,
Not to be rude, Yakov, but we all are comedians and like to look and turn over every stone. How did second base, first base, like how far did it go where she got caught? Just a little kiss on the lips?
yeah. Well, it was.
Or how far?
It was tongue and there was like passion happening, but not much more. Just a little bit more, maybe. Just maybe a little bit.
So
but,
like a makeout sesh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What
Yeah.
happened with you? Like, did the police report you?
Yeah,
and
did you get
get
in
in
trouble?
trouble?
They did, but the government didn't see that as a problem. They saw her being a foreigner, corrupting the Soviet citizen is more of her fault, not mine.
And around what
So-
year was this?
74.
74.
And what
He
were you
ju-
going
he
to
just said
school for?
75.
I was an art major.
Art major.
Yeah.
What did she
Wow.
study?
She was studying language.
Do you ever pine for her? Do you ever like, God, I wonder what happened?
Do
Did you
you
feel
call out-
terrible
Do you
about
call out
it?
her name in bed?
Yeah. Are you like,
And your wife's like, what?
Lee?
And then you're
Lee,
like,
where are you? Where
Well,
are you?
on E or whatever.
No, but it was one of those memories that was shocking and surprising and
Right.
and scary but exciting at the same time because it was like because we didn't have foreign people in the Soviet Union. They didn't normally show up there. And this was just an exchange program, and I guess it happened so she was very unusual, unique, and then she was gone.
Yeah.
How long till you next kiss someone?
I know. How were you like,
Wait.
let me see your papers?
Yeah.
Eventually, probably 6 months or so. I don't know. It's at this point.
Wow,
It's been a long
slut, you
time
moved on
ago.
so quick.
Wow. That's a good story. I mean, the thing about the podcast is it is a game at the same time.
It is.
And so that's an interesting story because to say it from the Soviet Union back in that time, there's like nothing really that we could ask to kind of pry out any information that it's a lie or the truth.
Mostly because we're very uneducated about other countries. Clever of you being from the
Yeah.
Soviet Union.
Well, I'll tell you another story that is my American story. So
Ooh.
if that
Okay.
you'll-
Well, let
you'll
me
be-
ask you
Yeah,
a
yeah,
very
yeah,
quick question
sure.
about this story. So she just happened to have like chopsticks?
Oh, that's so smart.
Yeah. No, we were going on a picnic. And so it was planned, and I brought some Russian vareniki with cherries,
Okay.
and they're kind of like dumplings.
Okay.
And she had some rice dish with her, so she was prepared to kind of teach me her, and I was teaching her about Russian culture. And she
Yeah,
was-
you did.
Nah.
Yeah, you did. Biggest lesson ever.
Well, I wonder where she came up with the chopsticks at in Russia. If
She
you were
brought-
Russian and never had even heard of chopsticks.
She had it with her as a
From China?
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah. So the purpose of it was to kind of educate each other. She wanted to learn about Russian traditions or food or whatever. And I was curious about Chinese. So it was like, well, let's have a picnic in the park, which started very innocent. And then little by little it got heated. And and then she got in trouble. And
Also, like, are the officers on duty? They're like, yeah, I'm gonna take the makeout park tonight. I'm just gonna go watch a bunch of kids make
they
out.
did. There was a lot of police all over the place, and this was their job. When it gets dark, they would get the flashlight and start searching for the bushes, because people, we had no. I lived in a communal apartment, so 9 families. My parents and I lived in one room till I was 26, till we left. So bringing a girl home was really not an option.
I mean, your dad brings your mom home. That's not fair.
And they didn't do much either. So
Yeah.
That's how they keep the birth rate down.
Yeah.
exactly. So that was an opportunity to be with somebody and be private and stuff, and then we got caught.
Wow.
Dirty policeman.
Yeah, well, I mean, I got caught when I was a kid, but it is a weird concept of, even back then, of, hey, I'm going to go to India, better bring my travel fork.
Well,
You know what I mean? That's kind of an odd thing, though. That part.
Well, they're used to eating with chopstick,
Right.
and I was curious, and so,
Right, yeah.
so, you know. So.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I always bring my hands wherever I go.
Yeah.
All right. Do we have any questions from the audience as of yet?
no, our faithful listeners, hosts Tedder and Leah are playing along with us. So.
Okay, awesome. Welcome back to the show, you guys. We appreciate when you tune in. So let's just move right along, unless anybody has any questions to your second story.
Okay.
And when did the Soviet Union not become the Soviet Union anymore?
89
91.
or 91.
91.
Yeah.
So I came to America. I wanted really an American dream. So American dream was get a nice car, get a nice place to live, get a pretty girl. And so I got a nice car. I got a nice place to live. And I had my eyes set on Brooke Shields.
This one for sure is
So did
true.
we all.
I know.
Yeah, what? So I saw movie Blue Lagoon, and and it was like, oh, this is a girl
yeah.
for me.
Yeah.
So I did the Tonight Show, and I said to Johnny Carson that I would like to marry Brooke Shields on air. And I thought it was kind of funny, but didn't think it could happen or anything like that. And then I was at some fundraising event, and I see Brooke Shields walking towards me, and she said, I heard you would like to marry me. And I went,
No, you went like this.
Yes, I did.
Okay.
Yes. And she said, I would like to get to know you. And so we made a date, went for lunch in Pacific Palisades, and no chopstick, no flashlight, just two of us. And
I feel like it's my duty to tell you it's a fleshlight. Like flesh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was trying to say that.
Yeah, I
but
know.
I kind of also
Felt
wanted.
wrong to correct you, but it's
Yeah.
a
Oh,
fleshlight.
No, you taught me that.
I just taught you what it
you're
was.
my
but-
teacher. You should correct me.
I kind of wanted him to like walk around and just be like appalled at flashlights.
I know.
So it's
Flesh.
got it. But
Okay,
you
yeah.
see, it's hard for me to see.
He couldn't believe what the kids were using flashlights for these days.
Yeah, yeah.
But
So,
he
it was
willingly accepted that the
educational. I
term had
did.
changed. We could just change any word and he'd believe us.
So that was we went out and she liked my car, she liked me, and she wanted me to meet her mom.
What kind of car did you have?
I had a Ferrari.
Oh, I remember this.
Yeah.
What year was this?
Ah.
It was 80. No, Yeah, it would be 81, 82, maybe.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, maybe a little bit later.
So only 6 to 7 years after Chopsticks, Lee.
Yeah,
After
yeah,
Lee.
yeah. But
From
yeah.
getting someone deported to Brooke Shields, you player.
Yeah. Yo, that's a real come up.
So and then she wanted me to meet her mom, and we met with mom in Italian restaurant, and she was like showing me off, and mom was not impressed whatsoever.
Not even when
And-
you showed up in the Ferrari?
I actually had the Rolls Royce also.
Oh, wow.
So next, I thought mom will be more impressed with the Rolls Royce,
Right.
but Brooke was kind of disappointed because she liked the Ferrari.
I'm just
So-
getting mad as he's talking. I'm like infuriated right now.
No, but that,
Like-
that combination was only douchey after 90. Before 90, it was hot. It was hot.
It
Yeah.
was hot. And
I want a Ferrari in Brooke Shields.
Yakov's the originator of
Yeah.
that.
I know. What the hell?
so that was the last time that I saw her.
Wait, so you went on the first date and she was immediately like, I want you to meet my mom.
Yeah.
And then how many days later did you meet her mom?
Oh, maybe a week.
And then her mom just was like,
I was
and
like,
no.
we're. Yeah.
Did she stop like calling you, or what happened?
At that point, it was like I figured that it didn't go well, so I just kind of let it go because I was over my head, no pun intended. so and I knew how connected mom and her were, so I kind of knew that this was not going to happen. And if she wanted it, she would probably continue that, but I sensed that.
So did you call her and she just never returned your call? Or you knew at that lunch like it was no?
I kind of knew at that lunch, and I think we might have maybe I called. I don't remember, but I don't think I heard back.
Right.
And how old were you and how old was Brooke?
I was one of the-
Yeah.
Same
She
age.
was
I know.
17.
She was she was younger than me, so yeah.
Yes, we know.
Yeah, but was it like Leonardo DiCaprio and any of his girlfriends, or was it a reasonable age?
No, it wasn't reasonable. I was probably in my 30s. Let's see. Well, I know where I was. She would be probably about 15 years younger than me.
Damn.
I'm guessing. I don't remember her age exactly, but
And so when the thing happened in Russia with Lee and the chopsticks
yes.
and her getting deported, how old? You said 1970. First, you said
74.
1975, 74.
Yeah,
How old
74.
were you in that time?
I was 24.
Uh-huh. And then, so then
34.
1981. So you would have been 30.
No, 80. Yeah, 30, and Luke was
33.
probably 20,
Oh.
maybe 22 or something like that. I don't remember.
Wow.
I think she might have been 18 or something. I think I'm
Okay,
the same
okay.
age. You're gonna piss Yakov now.
After this podcast, Yakov is
I'll
canceled.
be arrested.
And
They're
deported.
waiting for me.
We drive off in his Ferrari and
Yeah.
Rolls Royce.
The
We got him.
KGB is waiting for me.
He didn't get mad when I was late. Nothing, but now that I can do math, he's like, wow. Two very good. Do you know what? Those are really good choices for stories.
And I'm sorry, what year was the Brooke Shields date?
81.
He said 81.
81. Yeah,
Are you looking up the
82.
age?
No, we're not allowed to
no,
Google.
yeah,
Oh, we're not allowed
to
to
I'm
Google.
relaying the information to the audience.
Oh,
we
okay,
had
okay.
Richard Meyer showed up, who plays a lot with us.
Could be a little bit later because I'm thinking about like Ferrari and
He keeps track of his
Yeah, I'd
bitches
say
through his
maybe
cars.
Maybe 84, probably.
The concept of time through your automobiles.
Yes, exactly.
That's why Leto has
Yeah.
to buy one every year.
Well, Richard Meyer joined us, and he was
Okay.
very excited to see Yakov and
Yeah,
stuff.
of
So
course,
I wanted to
of
catch him
course.
up and make sure that he had a
Yes,
full rundown of the
yes,
stories.
yes, of course.
Okay, well, this is
So, any
interesting.
questions from the audience about these stories? If they have any one they're leaning towards?
Did you ever run into Brooke Shields like at all after that?
Oh, good question.
Not. Let's see. Maybe. But I think she was married already. I think she had a kid, so we might have been at the same event or something. But it was.
And-
Was she the one
And
that
the-
married Charlie Sheen?
No.
Who am I
Ha-
thinking?
Forgive him,
Heather.
he's a millennial.
I'm trying to catch up.
No, Brooke Shields was she was on that TV show.
She was the mom of Jackie in that 70s show.
Okay.
And she
Never
she
seen
also
it.
had like postpartum depression and all of that stuff. I know things, huh?
Yeah.
I'm a millennial.
You do,
What
you
up? Another question.
Mm-hmm.
What fundraiser did you meet at? You said she met you at like a fundraiser, and that's when.
Yeah, it was like a celebrity event. I don't remember now what it was,
All right.
but there was a bunch of different celebrities.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's
Wow.
so wow to be approached by Brooke Shields and asked out.
Hi, come on in.
Hi. Hi.
Come on in and join us. Do you know Yakov?
Hi.
Hey,
Will.
Nice to meet you, Will.
So Will was a little bit late. The traffic was horrendous today coming up on Sunset. Thank you very much for joining us.
Oh, thanks for having me.
You're very welcome. And Yakov here just told us a story about how I'm going to see if I can get it right. In fact, why don't you go ahead and tell him your story because he takes notes.
Yeah, okay, so this is a Yakov story recap. Story 1, he was in college in the Soviet Union where he explored the fleshlight of a random Asian girl. Not really. That was a whole. Sorry, you weren't here for
It was
that,
a
Joe.
bit.
I'm
We were
sorry.
doing a
Yeah,
bit.
yeah,
Okay.
It was
Yeah.
a callback to a
Yeah.
bit.
If you laugh, I'll edit out this part of no laughter and we'll put that part in.
Yeah. I just want you to roll around in your attempt at a joke in front of Yakov who didn't laugh. Just
okay.
roll
That's
around
all
in that
right.
pain.
That's okay.
Listen,
I was going to say
Thank
that
you for
doesn't
rubbing
seem
it into his.
I got to ask my hacky questions about Robin Williams to Yakov Smirnoff,
Yeah.
so I'm happy for the day. You
Okay,
guys can
all right.
ride me all you want.
Okay, there you go.
Could we have
Hypothetically.
Will scooch in to Pallavi just a
Yeah,
little bit?
this way
Oh.
towards
Come
Will.
on, man.
Yeah, don't
Oh.
be afraid.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
Oh,
and-
hold on.
I know
Pallavi,
you.
Pallavi, come
You
like
want
to
me
the
to
corner.
scoot?
Yeah, come on this way. There you go.
Bring it around
All right,
town.
so start off again real quick because then Yakov has to get out.
So he was in college with the Soviet Union, and he liked this Asian girl. She was really beautiful, and
You never said that.
We're assuming
Yeah.
because
No,
he
yeah,
always
yeah,
likes
yeah,
beautiful
yeah,
women.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank
Yakov
you.
has
She was
the
Appreciate
eye.
she was like a Chinese Brooke Shields. You could say that.
Right.
maybe.
Kind of. Yes. Yes.
that's the vibe I got. So she liked to try to speak Russian with him, so they went on a date to the park for a little picnic. And while he was there, he tried to kiss her and succeeded. She received the kiss, but suddenly a police officer, a KGB officer, approached with a flashlight.
Just
in him.
police guys.
Just police.
Yeah.
Just police. I don't
You're really
know.
trying to punch this story out.
I
Yeah,
don't know how it works.
You know,
in
he's like a
Russia.
legend, and you're like, leave it to me. I'll make this
Listen,
good.
we
I
know
don't
they
know how
all
it
have
works.
writers, okay? We know all these big shots have people writing for them.
And wait till the end and have judgment then.
Okay.
Continue.
And so the cop deported the girl and expelled her from school, and her name was Lee. And
Because it was illegal to kiss in public.
Oh,
There you go.
okay.
Yeah,
because
if
they
you're
were
a
in
foreigner.
Soviet Union.
Sorry, I missed a line, and whatever. We're on to story 2 now. He wanted the American dream, and he got it—the cars and the girls, everything. But he really had a crush on Brooke Shields. So he was on Johnny Carson, and he told him, "Hey, I got a big crush on Brooke Shields."
On camera.
On camera, like live on air. And at a fundraising event, they ran into each other, and he was at a loss for words because she was actually showing some interest in him. But to his surprise, she wanted to make a date. And they went out to an Italian joint in the Pacific Palisades where her mom was there. They kind of ambushed him a little bit, but she was clearly racist against Russians or something and said, "You ain't going out with Yakov Smirnoff." And that was the end of his Brooke Shields dreams.
And doesn't that happen to us all?
Yeah, it really does.
You're not going out with Yakov Smirnoff.
Yeah. and it might have
Happened
been
to
the
me.
age difference than you being a Russian.
Yeah, he might be arrested after this episode for the age difference between him and Brooke Shields in 1981.
So,
Chris Hansen's actually right outside the door.
all right. So if there's any questions from the audience, we'll take them. If not, let's make a vote because Yakov has a setup in the main room.
Let's take a vote.
Let's take a vote. So is there any questions you want to ask Yakov about any of this real quick?
I don't. What roughly like what years did the first story take place during?
So we're somewhere 74 or 75, maybe.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, that's it. That's all I got.
Yeah. And he thinks because he can tell time, the concept of time works for him per what automobile he has. So
He
at the
was
time
like-
he had a Ferrari.
Brooke Shields, that was the Ferrari years.
Oh, okay.
That's how that works.
Right.
And there was no car during the
College years.
Yeah.
You're like, that was the
That was-
bike years.
Yeah, I had a joke about my dad telling me, every Saturday night I would ask my dad for car keys, and every Saturday night he would tell me, please don't lose them because one day we might have a car.
All right, so we're going to take a quick vote because Yakov has to get to his set. What do you think, Austin?
I'm going to lean towards the Brooke Shields story being fake. One, because Leah thinks that... oh, wait, no, she does think that was fake. Crap, bad logic, because she's usually wrong. But because the age difference thing is kind of weird. I don't know. I'm young, so I don't really know what the age of the two
I will
were
say
then.
that men just don't pay attention to age difference when
Yeah.
they're hitting on
Yeah,
women.
yeah.
And it
So
was
I'm
a
going to let
different
that
time,
slide.
So maybe that was cool then.
Yeah.
I don't know.
What do you think?
Right.
What do you think?
I think the Brooke Shields one is fake because dudes like generally lie about beautiful women. like they can't even help themselves. So I feel like he probably like said the thing on Carson, met her, but then I bet they didn't go on a date or something. I bet like some part of that is
Yeah.
fake.
Yeah, they always lie like 2 degrees more.
Yeah.
So if you'd been like, we had sex 15 times, I would have been like, they made out in the back of his
Yeah.
car. But because it was just one unsuccessful date,
Yeah.
I see that logic.
They
but
just
I'm,
like passed.
I'm going with the deportation story as a lie.
As a lie.
Because I just
that's,
rolled in, so I'm trying to
yeah.
make waves right off the bat.
Oh wow.
It's a very interesting thing because on one hand, like what questions can we ask because of the deportation thing, So, but on the other thing, I think the Brooke Shields story is true.
You do?
Oh,
I
wow.
do. Yeah, I'm gonna go again it. So what is it, Yakov? Which one is the lie?
You're the Chinese girl is a lie.
What? Wow.
Wow.
Was it illegal to
Wait.
kiss in public in the Soviet Union
it
then?
was
Oh, okay.
illegal, yeah.
Hold on. How did you fuck up this Brooke Shields thing? Now I'm upset for you.
Sorry, I disappointed you. I was more disappointed than you are. Believe me. When Mom
We could
looked
be
at
talking
me
to
and
you
went,
and
"I
your
don't
wife."
think so." Yeah, I don't think so. Yeah.
But also back in the day, I mean, come on, you're a catch, Yakov. A catch, come on.
So
Well-
if you had gotten through the mom, you might have had a future with
knows?
Brooke Shields.
Yeah, yeah.
Always go through the
Well,
mom. Wait.
thank you so much for joining
My
us, Yakov.
pleasure.
I know you have to get to your
Yes,
set, and we
yes.
appreciate that you came and you did the Liars Club. Please follow Yakov. Do you have any dates you want to shout out?
I'm in Branson. Tonight at the Comedy Store.
Oh, yes, yes.
And,
Get over here in the next 10
and
minutes.
next Friday at the Comedy Store. I normally do that on Fridays. And then I have, I'm in Branson, Missouri at my theater on the 4th of July to 13th of July. And then I have dates. Just go on yakov.com, YAKOV.com, and
Wonderful.
you'll know where I am.
Again, thank you so
All
much
right,
for
my
sharing
pleasure.
your time with us.
Thank
Have a
you.
wonderful
Thank
set
you.
upstairs.
It was not easy to lie, I'll tell you that. I was telling my wife, I said, I got to go lie. She said, I'll help you. So she helped me with this
Oh,
story.
she did?
She had no idea about the Brooke Shields
Yeah.
story.
I told her about
Yeah.
that.
She did?
as well.
You did break a listener's heart because she had her first streak going ever in the history of the Liars Club. She had 2-0 going, and you broke it with
Yeah.
your story.
You're that good.
Thank
Sorry,
you,
Leah.
My
Yakov. Thank you. Be
pleasure.
careful
I'm
when
glad
you.
I learned to lie.
Yes,
Thank
and you can
Right
tell your
here.
wife about the fleshlight.
Yeah,
There's
spice
one
it
on
up.
there's one on Crescent Heights and
On the street.
There's a flashlight. I saw it as I
Look.
drove by.
No, he did.
I did.
Oh,
That's how,
really?
Yeah, that's
Oh.
how the whole fleshlight thing
Yeah.
started.
Oh, okay.
We I found one on Crescent Heights.
Yakov couldn't run out of here quick enough, is all I'm saying.
Yeah, he's a
He had to
little
go buy one.
uncomfortable.
We had to get that one off the
Alright.
street.
That was very cool that he did that. So we're going to move on to Will. Will, let me introduce you the correct way. This is our first time meeting, and it's
true.
Will Weldon, right?
Yeah.
And where can people follow you?
Just generally at Old Man Weldon, I think, across everything.
Great,
Yeah.
great.
Twitter, Instagram,
The whole-
PlayStation Network, you name it. I'm all about synergy.
Yeah. Anyway, so
This is your first time meeting.
you can go ahead and start your stories. Don't tell us which one is which. As you see, we'll ask you some questions. We have people playing along live. Oh, you have notes.
I have notes for both stories.
Okay.
And I also considered writing
I
lie,
know, I was just
question
gonna
mark at the
say.
top of each of them.
Yeah.
Okay. There are people following along.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
and
they'll
real
ask
quick,
questions.
just let me shout out Richard Meyer because he said one short-lived streak down Leah's and one just starting. It's the circle of life here on the Liars
there you
Club.
go. There you go.
Okay. So, to start, this is important for both stories. I'm Canadian. I moved down here in like 2008. Because I remember I got here for my fiance and I to fight about the Democratic primary in 2008, which was great timing. And so the first story, I was doing comedy in Toronto, where I moved down here from, and I had worked for like a couple days on this TV show, and there was the rap party, and I was gonna go briefly say hello to people to be polite and then go because I didn't think I'd know anybody. So I got there and. A bunch of my friends had come with people who'd worked on the show. So I was like, oh, great. I'll hang around a little longer. And then I went to buy a drink and they were like, oh, it's an open bar. And they also showed us there was like a digital clock above the bar, which had the total bar tab displayed on it. And so I was like, hey, guys, wouldn't it be funny? I was like 19. Hey, guys, wouldn't it be funny if we got the ticker up to $1,234.56, like, why don't we like shoot for something? And they were all like, oh yeah, sure. So I'm hanging around for whatever amount of time, and I'm young and small, and I get drunk pretty quickly, and I'm pretty wasted. And at one point, I look up and I see that the clock thing with the total is now in like the 3,000s. So I'm like, oh shit, I didn't think we'd blow through it that easy. So then I was like, you know what we should do? We should try to get to $6,543.21. And then I wake up in the hospital. And I sit up and I'm in a hospital bed and I'm like looking around and I'm like, what the fuck? And the nurse sees that I'm awake and it's pretty deserted, that area. And she sees I'm awake and she goes, get out. So I'm like, oh boy, what happened last night that I'm being spoken to this way by a medical a healthcare professional? And they like hand me the like chart to take home with like all the information written on it, and it just says no more alcohol, and it's been underlined like a dozen times, which is excessive. Like once you underline something 3 times, no more underlines adds any more emphasis. That's maximum is 3. And so I leave and I get on the streetcar to go home. And when I get on, everybody else on the streetcar stands up, moves to the back of the streetcar. So I'm sitting there, and as it's going back to my apartment, I'm like, the night is kind of like coming back to me in like bits and pieces. And I just remember getting to a point where I was so drunk and I was like, oh shit, I'm going to throw up. So I run into the men's room and I look and I see the sink and I see the urinal, and I'm like, well, it's better to throw up in the urinal. And then I throw up in the urinal, and then I remember that there's also a toilet like most people would use. There's the regular toilet for throw up. So then I was embarrassed and I just left. I didn't say goodbye to anybody. I just left. And I got in a cab and I was too drunk to tell the cab driver where I lived. So he just drove me around for $20 worth, which is all the cash I had. And then he just had me get out. And then I called my girlfriend at the time, and I told her, she was like, you're so drunk, where are you? And I told her, I'm at the corner of Ossington, Bathurst, and I think Dundas, which is 3 streets, none of which intersect with each other. There's no corner at any point with any of those 3 streets. And then I start throwing up, and my phone cuts out. And I guess a guy came along. I like fell on my face, and a guy came along and called the paramedics. And then I tried to fight the paramedics because I didn't want to go to the hospital. So they strapped me to a gurney, and then as we were driving to the hospital, I started crying because I was going to throw up again, and I was strapped on my back, and I was worried I was going to choke to death on it. And then I never got any other details. Like, that was pretty much all of it. But after my phone had cut out with my girlfriend, she told me that she'd borrowed her roommate's car and they'd driven around all night together looking for me, just trying to like find me, because they knew where the party was and they knew the general vicinity. And I was at the hospital literally across the street from her apartment. And so I finally get home and I walk up the stairs into my apartment and I look, there's like a mirror in the hallway, and I look and I have 2 black eyes and a huge bandage over my nose, which is so huge, just like so swelled up. And I'm covered in blood and vomit. Like they didn't clean me off. They gave me the bare. I feel like once you fight the paramedics, they're like, we're not giving this guy any extra treatment.
I see.
And so, and then my girlfriend came over ready to just like absolutely scream at me. And she walked in and I was sitting on the couch wrapped in a blanket in boxer shorts my mom had bought me for Christmas that said, "I'm too sexy" across the front of them. Just like shivering, and I'm all white because I'm also insanely hungover. And then she just didn't have it in her to get any angrier at me.
And you were 19?
I was 19.
And this, you said in the beginning of the story, this was a girl that you were going to get engaged to, or?
Well, we ended up getting engaged later, and we moved down here together and got married, then divorced. Yeah.
What? And how old are you now?
20. I'm 34.
Yeah.
That's the most suspicious part of this.
No.
I was actually suspicious about the universal health care, but it makes me feel good they just left you in your own vomit.
Oh, yeah.
Like up in Canada.
Yeah, they got, single payer, they got rules about what they got to do,
And
but they're not going to do more.
This took place in Canada?
Yeah, this is Toronto.
Oh, in Toronto.
Yeah. And the drinking age is 19 in
Oh,
Ontario.
it is.
Oh,
Yeah.
it is, yeah.
Wait, so what happened? So you were working on that TV show?
Yeah, I worked a couple days. I was like I barely worked on it. Like I didn't really know anybody
So you
there.
were a guy that barely worked on a TV show, went to the cast party, and got everyone to try to listen to you to try to get this tab to go to $1,234.56.
Yeah.
And everyone listened to you, a 19-year-old that was barely on the show?
I mean, listen to, humored, who's to say which of those two things they really did?
People humoring other people in show business that barely worked on the show?
Canadian show
people-
business.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
There's the monkey wrench in what you're probing at.
But people just wanting to drink, I feel like that's
Yeah, that's
something.
Canadian.
Yeah.
Did you do anything inappropriate at the party? It was like after? Did your castmate people?
No, well, a few different people were like, yeah, when we saw you were gone, we were worried because you were so drunk. We knew we had to like make sure you got home okay.
But even in Canadian show business, they were worried about a person that was barely on the set.
Alicia, you've been in this business too long. We're allowed
my
to care
God.
for each other.
Yeah, what?
Oh, wow. Hard into the life of a comedian.
You're telling me that they didn't rob your body after they realized how drunk you
Will,
were?
you deserve the shit that you get.
And what was the name of the show?
It was called Punched Up.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
And it was stand-up comedians?
No, it was a fictional show. It was a fictional reality show about comedians trying to like improve people's lives, and it would inevitably go bad. It essentially was like a fictional
Queer Eye.
Nathan For You.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it was kind of like Nathan For You, except so much worse. Like way, 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 way worse.
Like in terms of quality or in terms of what they did?
Oh, quality.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. oh, the bodies we racked up.
So what was your drink when you were 19? What was your
All
drink?
of them.
Yeah.
It depend for a long time. I bet I was still drinking rum and cokes then, because that's what my dad drank.
That's what I drink.
Oh, really?
Oh, really?
I like Jack and Coke.
Oh, Jack and Coke is different
Yeah.
than rum and coke.
I think I used to drink rum and Cokes, but now I'm like
That's why we
Jack
could never have sex. I could never have sex with a guy that drank rum and coke. because that's my dad's
That's the only
dream.
Oh, yeah.
reason, Felicia.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And a guy that fixed on cars if his hands smelled like an engine. I was like, nope.
Ooh.
Nope. You smell like an engine or
well, it's
Did you just call me an engine? What? I'm kidding. That's why we could never have sex.
You can wash that smell off of engines. There's like a good like.
I'm still hearing engine.
I just never have sex with a guy whose hands were covered in grease and oil and
No,
machine parts.
It's not about the filth of it. It's just the smell.
It should be about the filth of it. That should be the worst
No,
part.
because like
No, the filth is fine.
no, but like I
UTI,
dated a guy that was
schmooty-I.
an
Your pussy
artist.
cleans itself. It's fine.
But I dated this guy who was an artist, and so he would have paint and like paint thinner on him and all this, and it would never bother me. It was the smell of my father. I couldn't do that. Ooh.
I don't even. Oh, I guess my father smells like Dracar Noir.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I don't like. I find Trojans have a very specific smell, and I don't like using Trojans when I have sex because those were the condoms my dad wore when we had sex.
Oh, really?
Yeah, yeah.
At least he
Smell
protected
condoms,
you.
so-
He was always looking out for you, buddy.
Yeah, he really cared about me. Yeah, look, Trojans stink. None of the other condoms stink. Trojans smell
Are
like
you
garbage.
Really?
I
Yeah.
do like sampling condoms by smell.
They smell. It's disgusting.
Like I want to pick that one out. No,
the
not
only
today.
time I thought they smelled is when they're not lubricated and a guy is hammering you like a jackhammer. Then they smell like someone's
Ugh.
doing a roof somewhere.
Oh,
You know,
God.
tarring a roof.
Ugh.
Just smells
What are
like
all these
it smells like
all these,
friction.
all these industrial smells you're experiencing while you have sex.
I like how Austin is pretending that he has sex too, and he can almost get the conversation.
Here's what I'm envisioning.
He just turned into a doll.
I'm envisioning having to edit this podcast and like within feet of your two sons listening to all these sexcapades of yours. Every time, like,
They're like-
volume down, volume down.
They're like, yeah, we don't have sex with anyone that smells like mom.
Yeah, they probably won't ever. Wow.
What do you think you smell like?
Wouldn't it be weird if they only chose that out?
probably,
Though?
probably
Yeah, that's more likely for men. I
Men,
feel
they'll
like.
seek out what you smell like and try to fuck that.
Oh, really? I
Yeah.
think
They
because
always
I
try to
smell
fuck their
like
moms, right?
vintage
Like
furniture.
people like their moms. Will, tell us about your mom. You tell us all about your fucking your dad, but like tell us about you fucking your mom.
Oh boy, come on! I don't need this in my life.
So that is a very good story. That is the most drawn out drunk story that I've ever heard, and I mean that in this is a game after all, and you had many details.
I wanted all the details.
You had
Yeah.
so many details I couldn't keep up.
I'm giving
Yeah.
Can
I'm
I-
giving all the details
Wait,
to
I-
overwhelm everyone.
I want to
Yeah.
Because I
ask.
listened to the podcast.
Oh, you did?
And over entertaining, I'd rather win, which has been maybe a bit of a problem for me over the years.
What
No,
episode
we
did
can't
you
tell
listen-
that from your first story.
Not a great quality, maybe.
What? This has nothing to do with the
Oh,
thing, but
that's
I need.
okay.
I think we need to. Me and Felicia need to know. What was the argument about the Democratic primary in 2008?
My ex preferred Hillary Clinton. I preferred Barack Obama.
Okay.
Yeah, but this is where you lose me because you're Canadian.
Yeah.
But they
Yeah,
moved
well,
down here.
yeah, but-
in 2008.
well,
But
That's
this
where
happened in Toronto.
That's where I get confused.
No, Toronto was like 2007, right?
Yeah.
why
We moved down here at the start of 2008 because I remember it was my 23rd birthday, like a month after we got here, and that was like the primaries really ramping up at that point as it really came down to the two of them.
So what did
Right.
that have to do with what happened to you at 19?
He added details to just
Just for the
fucking.
purpose
He's like,
of-
this
Yeah.
is how I remember all the details.
And he
Here
wrote it
details
down.
about the details.
Yeah, it is how I plug. It is how I remembered when these things take
Politics.
place. No, when the stories take place. I remember the politics because my
Wow.
Mark
brain
that
is
one
diseased.
as the lie for me.
I know. I think Will is secretly crafty because he wrote his stories down, and I think you put in a lot of details to fuck with us, Will.
Yeah.
I think you put in a lot of details. Let's see what your second story is.
Yeah.
Do we have any questions online?
Nope. Everybody's
People are
rocking
just
and
like,
rolling.
all
Am I the
right.
only one with any stories left?
You have one more story left.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
'cause-
You've
Because
already-
we
yeah,
didn't-
it was you.
Oh,
and
oh,
Yakov.
okay.
I'm
You
like
and Yakov.
co-hosting
Oh,
for
okay,
today.
okay.
I'm helping.
Before you
I'm
start your
helping.
second story, Pallavi is co-hosting today because Jessica's on the road with Michael Evans, who usually is our engineer, and today we have Todd Walker is our engineer. Hi, Todd. Thank you
T-Dub.
for helping out.
Didn't even get a wave
You're
back.
welcome. Thank
Oh, there we
you.
go.
Yeah. Voice
Say,
of
real asshole.
beyond.
Yeah, just hear like a door opening and closing, and then a car driving away.
That That was Yakov trying to get the fuck out of here.
I forgot to set the tone for him though by telling him about Richard Pryor Jr. and Sam Kinison because that seems to get everybody like on a level.
Yeah, when you said
Wait, what?
when you said the fleshlight thing, I remember being like, when did Yakov Smirnoff go blue all of a sudden?
Felicia hit him with it immediately. And I was
Because
like,
right when we were waiting to go live, he showed us a picture and he told me.
Don't try to
I
pawn
showed
this off
Felicia-
on us. You
I
showed
showed
us. You're like, look what I found on the street.
But no, Felicia and I had already
I took
talked
it
about
home
that.
and named it Nancy.
I was on the phone with
I call it mother.
You know what it smells like?
and oil.
Machines.
He's like flogging himself with it. Mother says I've been very bad.
I was on the phone with Felicia
like
when
big
I found
pussy
it.
lashes
so I
all
wanted
over
to
your
show
back.
her that it was
It's what she feels like to me.
I found it.
Anyway, so when we
Such an
so
asshole.
I have it. You guys want to see it?
no. So when Yakov, he was sitting there, and I was like, you don't know what a fleshlight is, Yakov? And I had, because I've known Yakov since I'm a young woman, and I had such an overwhelming feeling of gratitude that I got to teach Yakov Smirnoff what a fleshlight was. I
Well,
found
you're
it
welcome.
funny. Okay,
You're very welcome for that opportunity.
That can be one of your true live stories later.
Yes, the highlight of
Yeah.
my life.
Hostetter said that you are a woven web of lies.
Yeah.
So I don't know if he knows you
Ah.
personally or if this is just going off the
I
first
agree.
story.
I don't know. I don't know. Wait, it's the screen name is like Will's ex-girlfriend or something like that.
It's
I didn't hear the story. I just want to say this guy's
It's
full of
actually
shit.
Hillary Rodham Clinton.
Oh, okay.
All right. So
Well,
let's move-
campaign on something next time.
We don't talk about politics because we try to be evergreen. And
Felicia will get
Hillary
fired
was
up.
a good candidate. Anyway, so I'm totally kidding. Let's move on and go to your second story. But
Okay.
I'm not really because I love Hillary. Go ahead.
I also was thinking, like, explaining Yakov Smirnoff about fleshlights and him just sitting there and being like, it turns out I do occasionally miss the Soviet Union as I'm listening to this.
Well, he thought it was pronounced. He thought we were saying flashlight.
Yeah.
So he was like, "What are
Yeah.
the kids doing with flashlights these days?"
For a long time, we let him believe that.
Well, just look, men. Look, I get it. Men have it way easier in most areas. Our sex toys are so much worse. Like way worse. We don't need, but just like slapping a pussy on a flashlight, like it's just so undignified.
Because we need it.
I
Do you
know.
understand how bad sex is normally?
Yes.
That we need the technology.
Yes, I've heard from third parties. I've heard from friends of people stories about other
All right,
people.
let's move
From
on
your
to your
dad.
second story. Second story.
Okay, so this was also in Toronto. I would have been a little bit older, but I was with my girlfriend. It was the same girlfriend, and we were going to see a movie. And for a long time, a couple years past when it was fashionable, I had like spiky hair, and I would bleach it sometimes.
I'm so excited. I
Oh,
want to
yeah.
see a picture of this.
I had spiky hair, and I would let it get too long, and then it would only set by like bending over and holding my head down and like letting gravity set it. And we're at the theater. We're at the theater, and we're going to see a movie. And people used to, because I'm not super tall, and I was even skinnier back then. And was Sum 41 big
Yes.
in America?
Yes.
So people would tell me I looked like the lead singer of Sum 41, Derek.
Can you look in the camera so people can
But
get a...
that's the thing. It's not my face because he's got like a Jeremy Renner pug face.
Uh-huh.
He does have a pug
Yeah,
face.
he's got like a smush nose. He looks like
He
a pug.
does have a Jeremy Renner face.
Yeah, but there was a period of time where if you had blonde hair that was like bleached or just very blonde,
Yeah, you would fit that.
yeah, you'd get it. The same way there was a period of time where if you had brown hair and glasses, people would be like, you look like Tina Fey. Like it's just an easy celebrity comparison at the
Okay.
time, especially in Canada. And so we were at the movies, and this group of teenagers comes up to me. It's like 5 of them, and one of them goes, "Hey, are you that Sum 41 guy?" And I go, "Yes." Like, because people used to say it all the time, and so I was like, "Yes," because I figured we would like laugh about it afterwards. And so they're asking me questions about the band, and I'm just like, just bullshitting with them about everything. But he was married to Avril Lavigne at that point.
Oh.
Yes. And so they start, because I'm there with my girlfriend who's not Avril Lavigne. And so they're like, "Who's this?" And I'm like, "Oh," I was like, "This is just a friend of mine. Like, we've known each other a long time." And they, like, a couple of them asked me for pictures, and I signed a couple autographs. And one of them
They
asked
had pictures or just...
with their phones.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And they like ask a couple questions about Avril Lavigne, and I just say something like, "Oh, like, we like to spend some time apart, just to we need time apart, and we've known each other for a long time, which ended up being true. I just made it up, but it actually ended up being true. So, we like to spend some time apart and just be by ourselves. And so we just go in and see the movie, and then, the movie ends. And then the next day, Rebecca, my girlfriend, calls me, and she's like, hey, go to this website. And it was like that period of time where there were what felt like millions of just small-time gossip sites on the internet. Well, they were all and eventually Gawker and Just Jared, a few emerged out of it and became the big ones. But it was like these small Canadian gossip sites, and they were all running a story with a selfie with the picture of me with this teenager, and it was problems with Avril, and it just said that they'd quoted this girl who was oh, and he said that they're spending some time apart. And so the story started to spread on these small sites that didn't check anything before it got crushed. And I think afterwards I found out a part of the reason it was spreading is because the Something Awful, the goons on the Something Awful forum, they saw the story and knew I wasn't the guy from Sum 41. So then they started spreading it as much as possible to be funny, because they thought it was funny to spread this bullshit. And so it was a day maybe before that stuff really started, all that stuff started to get pulled down, and most of the sites didn't even mention it. And then months later, I got a letter from a law firm, which was essentially a cease and desist from the band's lawyers, telling me to never impersonate him ever again, or they might seek, or they would seek damages for defamation. And so I didn't. But it also at that point it never came up again, because I was they were having a resurgence because he'd married Avril Lavigne, but within a year, Sum 41 was just back to being regular again.
Yeah.
I think I saw them in concert on a Warped Tour.
Yeah,
them in Goldfinger.
They were huge in every Canadian celebrity is a big deal in Canada, but people don't know what they look like. Every Canadian knows every famous Canadian, but they know they're famous. But if you were pick them out of this lineup, they'd be like, "Oh, I don't know what they look like or what they do."
And here's the thing about Canadians: if you're hanging out with a Canadian, and if you say anyone that happens to be from Canada, they're like Canadian, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they're owning it.
They all do that. I was trying to tell my friend, this guy Jeff Singer, I was I've noticed, because he's Canadian, that every time, let's say I say Neil Young, and he goes Canadian.
Yeah. My mom asked me a few months ago. She was like, "Oh, did you see Schitt's Creek got written about in an American newspaper?" And I was like, "Why would I see? I didn't know you were working on Schitt's Creek all of a sudden, Mom." But it's Canada's whole identity is based around being being America. Oh, they think they're so great, they're nothing. But then creating their entire culture by comparing themselves to America. Mm-hmm. It's a very culturally challenged country.
It's so funny that you're saying that, but when you said that Sum 41, I thought of that music video, and there's an Indian dude in it, an Indian uncle in it. That's how I remember the music video. I'm they're Indian.
Well, their bass, I think their bassist, maybe it's their guitarist, but he was a brown guy. He went by Brown Sound.
Yeah, I was that's a fucking Indian dude or a brown dude in a band.
Them and Billy Talent was the same thing. They were a screamo band, and I think their guitarist or bassist was an Indian guy.
Do we have any questions from our?
We have some questions. We have some concerns. And Richard Meyer definitely just did one of the funniest things I've ever seen on this live feed of comments. As soon as Will started his story, Richard commented, "Was he the lead singer of Sum 41? That's where I know him from." Before you even said Sum 41.
I don't look like him.
Take that hat off. Let's see that hair.
My hair's too long, and I'm worried it'll jinx the team. They're playing right now. This is extremely stressful.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
I thought the game was tomorrow.
Leah shares a concern that I have about the time period and the use of phones.
Yes, we also exchanged a look.
And you said that you were back in Toronto with this girl years later.
he said he was older, but
Yes.
then you said right after the drunk story is when you came to the U.S. So that's confusing.
Yeah.
The drunk story. So I was 23 when I moved down here. The drunk story I would have been like
19.
probably 19, 20. And then the one after, that was probably like a year or two after that.
That you went back to Canada?
No, I didn't go back. I
He
was
just
still
there.
in Canada.
So he's like
'Cause
drunk story or like 1920, and he's saying the other story is at like 21, 22. But when you said the drunk story, I was like 2007, and you were like, yeah. Because you were like, it was right before. So I don't know. I feel like they're both lies now.
Well, here's the thing,
No,
though.
well, it would have been earlier. The drunk story would have been earlier than
I
2007.
can relate with the gossip, the little silly gossip pages, because I don't mean to brag, but I was on 2 episodes of Full House.
Oh my
Back in
God.
the day.
I've
Did your
seen 'em.
parents bribe you to get you on there?
I'll be honest. It seems like you mean to brag.
Can confirm. I've seen it.
and I had to kiss Dave Coulier
Oh,
on Full
you
House.
got
'cause
to kiss
I-
Dave
I-
Coulier.
I had to
How does
kiss.
Alanis feel right now? Felicia,
this
come
is-
on.
Yeah, I'm so
Exactly.
Canadian. I was like, Alanis
I know.
Morissette.
Immediately.
This is
Both of
what
them.
I'm getting at. So I had to kiss Dave Coulier on that. I never thought about it again. Only did 2 episodes, I think, because I told a dirty joke in the dressing room that was filthy, and I might have not been asked back because of it. Because anyway, so years
Bob
go
Saget had
by, and I had stopped doing comedy, and I had kids, and then I got back into comedy. This is like a decade later. I get back into comedy, and I was like, I wonder if anyone ever wrote anything about me, because when I quit comedy, the internet was just starting to gear up and all. So I Google myself. I don't mean to look so sad in front of everybody, but 136 pages in,
Oh my God.
I land on some Canadian gossip site.
136
well,
pages.
you know what
in.
I'm saying. And
She
so-
was busy neglecting her children, okay?
don't
What?
you-
My kids were fine. The car was very hot.
Todd said
They were
Felicia's
napping.
lying.
No, this
I
is
know.
totally true.
It
This
does
is
feel
totally
like
true.
she's lying.
And in that gossip page was about how they broke up because she thought he was cheating on her because he kissed this girl named Felicia Michaels on Full House. And that
So
they
you
had
guys were
gotten
like-
into a fight. I think it's all bullshit, but it was on that gossip, one of those little gossip things. So that lends me to my point is I might have to think that last story is true because you gave such tremendous amount of information on the first story. I had a hard time following the through line of that first story, and you're jumping around so much in the timeline, and it seems like it's all not okay within that first story, that timeline that you're saying.
The Quentin Tarantino of whatever this show is called. I forgot for a second. The Liars Club. The Liars Club? Yeah, with the
Yeah.
recovery.
Yeah.
He said he's listened to it.
What do you think?
What,
Oh, I'm
No,
sorry.
I'm just. I'm
what
just.
movie did you watch? when
I
you-
have no idea.
I'm just reflecting on the fact that you and Dave Coulier were the Lady Gaga and Bradley Cooper of your time.
I don't mean to brag, but he had very cold lips.
It was that scene in Full House where Dave Coulier gets a blowjob in a movie theater.
I don't think Felicia knows the meaning of I don't mean to brag. I think she's just throwing it out there.
Leah is confirming too that she has also seen these episodes. So
Yeah.
Oh, I thought she was going to be like,
So
I
it's not
also
a lie,
kissed Dave
Todd.
Coulier.
oh yeah, she's from Bartow, Florida. She does.
So what are your thoughts? Does anybody have any thoughts on whether what story is true or a lie?
Oh, but the movie, the Sum 41 one, it would have been either during summer or spring because we did not have big coats with us.
Summer, spring of what year?
They were not married for very long. It was only like 2 years. So it was honestly maybe, it was probably 2007.
Because the big concern online and with myself and I think Felicia is the phone comment
And
that
me,
you guys
also
were
me.
like,
I'm also
and
concerned about that. Thank
sorry.
you. Jesus.
The picture phones started in like 2003 or something like that.
I was in like 3rd grade. So
I didn't.
don't
I've
know.
never heard them called picture phones before.
Yeah, you probably did look like you had.
the old picture phones.
You probably and how pixelated those images were. You probably did look like you know.
Yeah, it was
yeah.
not. I remember the image, and it bums me out because I can't find it anywhere. Like I've tried a bunch of times over, like I don't know, for a few years, maybe like 4 or 5 years ago, but it's like gone.
Yeah.
And it looked like it was the quality of photo if you like took a photo in like the dead of night with a lot of street lamps around. Like it just looked like shit, that photo.
Right. What do you think, Austin, is the lie?
My gut tells me that first one was a lie because I couldn't keep up with the first few sentences, and I don't understand why we were even talking about the election and why you were in Los Angeles if the whole story was.
Told you I
3
was,
years
I was just
before.
placing
Yeah,
myself in
um,
time.
mhm.
I need a
Right.
constant.
I gotcha.
Yeah.
You know, it's weird because none of the time references were constant. So I feel like you need a better system.
What do you think? Which one do you think is a lie?
You guys are convincing me that the first one is a lie. But
sometimes when people, and I'm sorry if I'm harping on this, if you guys have heard me say this before, but sometimes when people give way too many details, they are telling the truth, you know?
this one had a lot of details too, though.
But it didn't have as much as
Yeah.
the first one. The first one, it was just like, what the fuck, dude? Get to the story. I mean, no,
It's
my
like
apologies.
It's like you're a fucking bad comedian. Like, get to the.
No, it wasn't.
I
like
am.
that.
I am notorious for my
kidding.
lengthy setups.
I'm kidding.
You know, I love a nice meandering path to the punch. Just 4 minutes later, and then I fucked her.
Oh no. Are you one of those guys when you have sex that you have sex for a long time? You know what I mean? Like, 'cause you're meandering around. Are you one of
No,
those guys?
It really depends on.
Yeah.
It's, you know, I'm pretty tough to pin down.
Okay. I don't know
That's
why I
how
asked
they
that.
have to catch you first.
Yeah.
right. So
They have like a
weird.
butterfly net over my head. They
What do you
answered my
think?
riddles.
I'm still saying the first one's a lie. Leah thinks the first one's a lie and the second story's true, which is the only thing that makes me want to change my answer. But she was 2-0 last week, so
Who is
Yeah.
this Leah
Leah's
person?
our
She's,
number one.
she's just a punching bag all episode.
No,
You're like,
turn
oh,
around
that.
and say hi to her.
Yeah, she's in the camera.
Yeah.
She's
There
our
you go.
Oh, I thought she was in the room, and I was like, oh, did I say punching bag?
pretty much the queen of the TLC fan club, if
Yeah,
you will. So.
yeah. I think now that because Austin is choosing that, then it makes me almost want to go a different way. But I mean, I think the Avril Lavigne story, and being that you're from Canada, is kind of like the Yakov story, where it's a pretty easy thing to lie under,
Yeah.
under a veil.
Under oath.
A
Yeah, in a
veil-
court.
You are
Courtroom.
under oath.
Yeah, yeah.
Actually, we forgot to tell you.
under a veil of cultural differences.
Yeah.
Yes, Canada and the Soviet Union are very similar in how different they are from America.
Dude,
I mean, to me, it's all the same. I have no idea what's going on in either of those countries.
Yeah.
We just released an episode with a man from Kansas and a girl
Uh-huh.
from Kentucky, and
That's
You know, so
true,
we've
yeah.
really spiced things up over the
Yeah.
course of a week.
Yeah, I listened to that one. Yeah.
all right,
Why?
I'm gonna not change my answer. I think the first story is complete horseshit. What do you think?
I'm gonna say the Avril Lavigne one's fake, just to have something different.
Okay, all right. all right.
Hostedder thinks the first one involved a HIPAA violation, so he'll be contacting somebody about that.
Okay.
It is.
agreed.
It is. That's
Yeah.
disgusting.
Why is it a HIPAA violation?
Because
like,
the
they're not allowed to
paramedics
walk
beat you
out with-
up and they tossed you out. I'm sorry, Paula.
No, they didn't beat me up. They just didn't clean me up.
Well, then how did you get blood all over your
Because I
face?
fell in
fell.
my blood.
Oh,
and I
man.
bled all over
And he
myself.
was puking, and they didn't clean it up, and you were on a bus like that. That's crazy.
Streetcar.
yeah.
It's
But
impractical,
then
but
maybe
prettier.
because he did fall and he did pass out, that he remembers that story in a disjointed way. And so I'm going to change my mind. I'm going to say the first story is true and the second story is a lie. I've changed my mind. Which one is
Wait,
the
what
lie?
do you think?
Fuck. Now I want to say.
I know.
Now that I'm thinking about the medical stuff, I'm like, that doesn't happen in hospitals, even if they hate you.
How about you, Todd? Are you listening?
Todd said, where am I?
Yeah, I'm here.
What?
Todd's like, I have to leave.
What do you think? Which one do you think?
I'm thinking that the second story is the truth because he's trying to put out his persona as the guy from Sum 41.
Uh-huh.
So you gotta, if you're trying to do that, he's trying to make a name for himself. So that's why I just feel like I feel like that one is the truth. The first one's a lie.
Okay. Thanks for clearing that up.
So no, Todd was not listening. Is basically the answer to your question.
He thinks I am the guy from Sum 41.
He's like, no, what really happened with Avril?
He's waiting for your autograph.
Which one is the lie?
The second one is the lie.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. The first one was
Yes.
true.
Okay.
Yeah,
All
and it
right.
is a disjointed story because it came back to me in bits and pieces over the span of like 6 months.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Wow.
I was really fucked up really badly from it.
Was
Yeah.
any part of the second story true? Like, did you?
We used
you
to
went
go
a
see
movie?
movies at Scotiabank Theater. I think it was a Cineplex Odeon.
Avril Lavigne is Canadian.
People used to be like, "Oh, you like the Sum 41 guy."
Okay, so you added the gossip magazine.
Yeah, because
part.
the Sum 41 thing had to have some elements of truth, because even Richard Meyer thought that without even being led down that path.
And because earlier today, I got the call about doing this in the middle of one of the Raptors game, like on Wednesday, and I could not focus on what was being said on the phone call because I was just standing right in front of the television, like sweating, and I was like, "I'm so sorry, I'm watching basketball. I can't." Like, that sounds great. And then today at like 1, I was like, "Am I doing a podcast today?" It's like a podcast about lying, and then I was like, Am I just doing the thing where I make something up in my brain and then convince myself it was real? And then when I got the text confirming today, I was like, oh God. It was harder to think of a story from my real life than like a lie, because I'm just not an interesting person. I had one good story. I did it on TV, so that would have given me away pretty quick potentially.
Well, thank you so much for coming here and doing the podcast. We appreciate you sharing your time, and we won't hold it against you that you were late, although you might have been told the wrong time.
I wasn't going to say anything, but I absolutely was. I was. I figured I was like, well, I'll cover for the show and make it seem like a professional outlet.
But, let's call it out like we should call it out. I would like to thank all our listeners for playing along. We certainly appreciate when you guys do, and I would like you to know that next Monday we are not having a podcast because my son is graduating high school. I'm almost out, you guys. I'm almost out. Let me rock back and forth and hug myself. I'm almost fucking out. Anyway, but we will, and then on Friday we're doing our show at the Ice House, and we have such a wonderful array of comedians. We have Robin Tran, one of the most amazing joke writers. I think she's pretty fabulous. We have Mike Favorman, who we're going to release that episode on Monday, and you guys probably saw the episode because you like to listen and play along live, and it was an amazing episode. And we also have Jessa Reed, who is one of the guests on one of our first podcasts, and she has a podcast called Meth and the Meathead.
Mormon and the Meth Head.
Mormon and the Meth Head. Dude, she's fucking awesome. She is so hilarious.
So
yeah, and so if anybody is out there from the Los Angeles area, please know that we will be at the Ice House. Once again, I would like to say we are so thrilled to be part of the Comedy Store Network. If you're ever in Los Angeles, please come here to the Comedy Store. Tuesday nights are particularly fantastic here at the Comedy Store, but every night they have the biggest killers on stage. In fact, 2 nights ago, people were starting to leave, and Chappelle actually walked on stage and did like an hour and a half of it. He did a long time. And
that doesn't sound like Dave Chappelle.
No, an hour and a half is short for Chappelle. Usually does like 6 to 8 hours.
Do you remember there was a period of time where he and Dane Cook were like trading the record for longest stand-up comedy set back and forth for a while? And I remember looking at like these like 14 hours and just being like, that sounds like honestly the worst night of my entire life.
And here's the thing, the pro at doing long sets here at the Comedy Store.
Like
you said the worst night, and he just related like another worst night story.
Yes.
No, but
it's so much comedy to sit through.
The biggest pro that would go on forever and ever and ever back in the day was Damon Wayans. He would go on for. He would actually stand behind the curtain and do invisible comic, so you wouldn't even see the people leaving the room. Everyone after him was like, "Why won't he stop?" But we appreciate people listening, and we appreciate our viewers. And you can find us as always on iTunes, on Podbean. Our YouTube is killing it. Please subscribe to our YouTube at the Liars Club and also the Comedy Store's YouTube. Thank you very much, Todd Walker, for engineering this episode. Thank you, Pallavi, for sitting in for Jessica. It was last minute, and we appreciate that. And as always, thank you, Austin Walker. Your editing skills should be faster. Anyway, thanks, you guys. Have a wonderful night. Follow me all across the board at Felicia Michaels, and follow Jessica Wellington at Jess Wellington 2 all across the board. And have a good night.
No, you got to do the thing.
What thing?
The Jessica's thing.
Oh, and you can lie too.
R.I.P. Dr. John.
That was fun.
Hope I didn't sound like too much of an idiot at the end.